I'm going to provide an overview of my model railroad. I modeled the Rock Island between St. Paul, Minnesota and Kansas City, Missouri in the mid-1960s. The railroad is a two-level railroad. Lower level is 40 inches off the floor, upper level is about 60 inches off the floor. And what I'll do is I walk around the room and walk around the layout is I'll cover both the upper and lower levels during the walk. So on this end of the layout, this is one of the helixes on one end, and as you leave the helix on the upper level is the Minnesota transfer yard in Minneapolis, and on the lower level is the Union Pacific's Armstrong yard in Kansas City. And on the upper level is the Battle Creek trestle near St. Paul. And on the lower level is a grain elevator in the Kansas City terminal. On the upper level, this is the Dayton's Bluff area near St. Paul. And back down on the lower level, this is a view of the Chicago Great Western's Ohio Avenue yard in Kansas City. And on the upper level is just some open country running in the Minneapolis-St. Paul terminal. Then both levels come around and they go into the staging yard. This is a run-through staging yard, so all trains operate through the staging yard on the main line, and then there are several tracks for staging trains. As you come out of the staging yard on the upper level, you're coming into the Inver Grove yard in St. Paul. That's the Inver Grove locomotive facility and the Inver Grove yard. And on the lower level is the Kansas City's Armadale yard on the Rock Island. So again, upper level is St. Paul, lower level Kansas City. And then down on this end of both yards, you've got the Armadale yard office and locomotive facility. And on the upper level is the Inver Grove yard office, caboose track, and then the St. Paul Pioneer Press newsprint warehouse. As you leave both yards, you get into some open country running. Lower level, that's the Grand River crossing in Missouri as you leave Kansas City going north. On the lower level, this is Trenton, Missouri. And the upper level is just essentially some open, wide country running. And on the lower level, coming out of Trenton, Missouri, is just a typical farm scene in Missouri. And as you come around the curve, from there is just more wide open running in Missouri. In the upper level, this is Albert Lea, Minnesota, and the Wilson packing plant. And then this is the passenger station at Albert Lea. And a small yard. On the lower level, the track is going through a pretty good cut, and there's a wagon bridge that goes over the top of the cut. Takes a county road over the top of the cut. As you come around the curve, on the lower level is Des Moines, Iowa. And on the upper level is Mason City, Iowa, and that's a cement plant in the distance. We'll look at that here in a second. Back at Des Moines, you've got the passenger station and the canopies with the passenger station. There's the famous Des Moines, Iowa arch over 4th Street. And then just some industries in the downtown area of Des Moines near the depot. Upper level is Mason City cement plant. This is the Northwestern States Portland cement plant. Back down lower level, Des Moines. This is the crossing of the Des Moines River. And some industry in the Des Moines terminal, a scrapyard. And as you leave Des Moines, heading north, is the small township of Shipley, Iowa. Basically just a local agricultural siting there for fertilizer and those kinds of things, and then school. On the upper level is Clear Lake Junction. This is where the Rock Island had running rights over the Chicago Great Western at this particular location, and this track crosses the Iowa Terminal Railroad, which is an electric railroad, overhead wires. That railroad is still in operation to this day. On the upper level, when we get around the curve, we'll get into Iowa Falls, Iowa. On the lower level, as we leave Shipley and the schoolhouse, we go past a farm scene in Iowa. And as we come around the curve, we'll be coming into Nevada, Iowa. It's the Indian Creek Bridge and the depot at Nevada. And on the upper level, we have Iowa Falls with the station that is situated in a curve, just as the real one is. And Iowa Falls, as you head north out of there, you end up crossing the, as you head south out of Iowa Falls, you cross the Iowa River here. And then shortly after crossing the Iowa River is the bridge over the Chicago Northwestern Railway. And on the lower level, again back to Nevada, Iowa, there's the station and grain elevator. And a small residential scene. And as then you leave Nevada on the lower level and Iowa Falls on the upper level, you end up back into the second helix, which is actually Buckeye siding for meeting and passing trains, and that's the second helix. So that gives you an overview of the Rock Island between St. Paul and Kansas City. Thanks for watching.